Tennessee Junior Senator Bill Hagerty took aim at President Biden this week, and he did it on Fox News. Senator Hagerty was asked about reports the Biden administration is withholding a shipment of ammunition from Israel as a bargaining chip for Israel to do a better job of protecting innocent Palestinians.
Very disturbing. I've seen the same reports that you have. We've inquired in the State Department to determine the veracity of these reports. But if it's true, I think it's quite disturbing. And frankly, it's not surprising. The Biden administration has been using both sidisms here. They're basically saying we support Israel at the same time they're doing everything they can to support Hamas. I don't see them imposing any sorts of constraints when they relax the sanctions on Iran. No constraints at all when they help our adversaries. But here we are with our only ally, our only real ally in the Middle East. And the Biden administration is imposing constraint after constraint, trying to dictate what happens politically within that country, and now trying to dictate the terms of war on the ground. Rafah is a tough situation. They need to step back and allow the Israelis to do what they know to do to deal with this.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not backing down on his efforts to eliminate Hamas, saying Israel has the right to defend itself and will do so even if they have to go it alone. Senator Hagerty was asked if the White House is making a calculated mistake in how it handles the war between Israel and Hamas.
It's like a split-screen TV here. What's happening in Israel is what needs to happen, and the Israeli people support this far and away. The Israeli people support what Benjamin Netanyahu is executing. We should not have Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden trying to insert themselves into domestic politics there in Israel. They should simply be supporting our ally. What's happening here in America is quite a different story. What you have is a great focus by this White House on what's happening in Michigan and Minnesota. They're very much focused on the November elections. They're appeasing, these radicals on college campuses, whatever they need to do to somehow support and appease these Hamas protesters here in America, because they're concerned about this very fragile coalition that Joe Biden is trying to put together for November 2024.
The White House has also discussed a plan to possibly bring Palestinian refugees into the U.S. 30 Republican senators wrote to the White House demanding they end those plans to bring Palestinian refugees into the United States.
You can understand the concern. This administration is incapable of maintaining our own southern border. We've got people on the terrorist watch list that are walking across our southern border every day. The thought that the Biden administration could properly vet these people coming from Gaza, where 70% of the citizens of Gaza support what Hamas did on October the 7th, I think it is very hard to imagine that we're not going to see even more introduction of people that would be a danger to our national security if the Biden administration goes through with this $3.5 billion plan that they announced the minute the Senate approved the last major bill that came through the Congress.
Senator Hagerty was also asked if he favored a federal investigation into the identity of agitators inflaming college campus protests.
Well, I think it's quite disturbing to Americans to see what's happening on our college campuses. Not all college campuses, of course, but the illustration that you just gave with respect to George Washington University, the grandfather of our nation, George Washington, having his statue defaced. This is happening in campus after campus after campus. And when we learn that it's organized, I don't know why Americans should be surprised in any respect. People like George Soros have been fomenting dissent in America for years. We do have foreign agitators as well, people like Hans-Georg Wyss, Swiss billionaire, who is doing everything he can to distort American elections. Again, it's interesting that this type of thing happens before major presidential election years. You go back to 2012 with Occupy Wall Street, the BLM riots that took place in 2020. And here we are today. I think that the American public ought to be very disturbed. We ought to investigate this. And rather than have the FBI go after parents that attend PTA meetings and perhaps complain about mask mandates and that type of thing, they should be focused on exactly what's happening here in America and who's behind it.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. Hope it was a calmer weekend than this bad weather week we've had. That will do it for another edition of This Week. We'll hope to see you back here next weekend for another edition of This Week. Between now and then, enjoy yourself and your family and have a great week.